Um, Welcome everyone to the Patent Literacy Symposium and session for integrating reading supports with educational technology. My name is Donna Halpin. I'm joined by my colleague, Tammy Thompson-Cook. We are so excited to facilitate this session for everyone. I have a few housekeeping items to go over and review with you. The handouts for this session are at the Patent Literacy Symposium are housed on Schoolology. If they are not up there for this session prior to it, we will make sure that they get in there as soon as possible. The folder at the end of the day will have your attendance, so you will need to do that. The session is going to be 75 minutes long. This session is now being recorded. The chat feature will be off for participants. We had a little glitch, so we're hoping that at the very end we can take some questions and you can unmute if you have specific questions, or Sharon will certainly provide an email address, and I'll monitor the Schoolology as we're going through this. Please keep your video features off and mute yourself so that we can eliminate any potential distractions during the presentation. I mentioned the questions at the end. We would love, love, love for you to tweet out or share on social media with the hashtag for the Patent Symposium at hashtag PA Symposium 2020. And now I'd like to introduce you to Sharon Plante. She's an educator with over 23 years teaching experience in special ed, currently serves as a teacher and chief technology integrator at Southport School. As a classroom educator, she is certified Norton Gillingham tutor. She uses her training and understanding of technology to empower the students with learning disabilities in the classroom through virtual learning. Sharon is also the co-author of Using Technology to Engage Students with Learning Disabilities. This highlights the incorporation of technology through the universal design model to reach all learners. She's presented at the International Dyslexia Association, the Dyslexia Foundation, the Northeast Association of Learning Specialists, ATIA, Spotlight on Dyslexia, and Pennsylvania Department of Ed. Sharon is a member of Connecticut's Association of Independent Schools, Commission on School Growth and Collaboration. And additionally, she was awarded the 2016 Distinguished Alumni Award from George Mason University College of Education and Human Development. And with that, Sharon, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Donna. Ooh, we have a question already.
Yes, we do. From
Cart provider. Quick question.
Quick question.
You would have to unmute yourself.
I just did that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll come back to it. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Donna and Tammy, for having me here and for that great introduction. To give you a quick introduction to my school, which might frame a little bit of what are we talking about today. The Southport School is in Connecticut. It's an independent school just for students with language-based learning disabilities. So we are lower and middle school, so about K to 8. We are a skill-based school. So, and again, all our students are, have dyslexia, ADHD, executive dysfunction challenges. So we really highlight on how to leverage skill-based instruction, and for my component, how to leverage educational and assistive technology. I teach in the class, so I am a classroom teacher, but I also do all the technology, so I get an understanding of where you're all coming from, particularly when it comes to reading instruction. And that's kind of really I'm going to address it from like English language arts, but I know it goes cross-curricularly. I teach a science class, and I know reading instruction there is always a component of comprehension. And I'm going to kind of go many places today with kind of some ideas, but specifically focusing kind of on that ELA kind of side of things. I forgot to share my screen first. So yes, this PowerPoint is, the slides is not in the folder as of yet. It will be later, but I am going to put up a link for you to access it right now if you want to. So let me go back to, so you can use the tiny URL that's on the bottom, patent reading, pretty quick and easy to access this at any time. Again, we will make sure it gets into the folder. Nothing in here is proprietary, so you can feel free to share this with others. And I always love this Calvin and Hobbes thing. You know, I think about teaching my students. Currently I'm teaching 7th graders, and this is them when it comes to reading, that they would like to be one and done. Although I will tell you how I engage them pretty quickly with auditory reading. It's their favorite thing right now. So we know for these kids who struggle with reading, they don't want to read. I got that. I remember not loving reading as well. And again, if you don't get that link, I'll bring it back up at the end. And again, this will be available later in the folder. Again, I may go through many things. I know, again, people will be taking fast and furious notes, and then you may forget what you wrote down. You can feel free to email me at any time with questions. I love to connect with people on Twitter and love to share and collaborate through Twitter. You can access my blog, which needs to get updated of sorts, but life as it has stepped in. And just if you'd like to find out more information about our school, the Southport School, and then the Southport CoLab is our training collaborative that we've been building over the last couple of years. We have, like many, transitioned some of it to be online, some of it in person. We actually are doing some of our training this summer online among various different topics, including with OG and executive functions and things like that. So you can go to the Southport CoLab website to learn more about that for some of those resources. We also work with other organizations like Haskins Lab in New Haven with their research on dyslexia. Also partner with Literacy How. Margie Gillis is one of my favorite people. Other resources that we try to make available through our collaborative efforts, just like Pennsylvania does with many of their things, which is why I love working with Pennsylvania on and being able to come share with you today, because you guys have a great resource of connecting educators to information.
Sharon, we do have closed captioning. I did figure out that's what it was. Good. That should be available to if somebody needs that.
Perfect. Yep, I see that just pop up. Great. And just briefly, if you're not familiar with Universal Design for Learning, which was kind of where I base a lot of this out of, particularly for having a conversation, and if you are a special educator, you may want to frame this with a regular educator, that this is one of the key great points of today. Universal Design for Learning is really about thinking about every learner. And when we think about reading supports, it really can be addressed for any learner. This is a great educational framework that is not new. And what's so interesting is so many people think of it as a special education construct, and it's not. It's really about thinking about every learner. And probably in these last few months, as many of us have been in different learning environments of remote and distance learning, this has given even greater thought to that. But it's really thinking about the needs for every learner. And if we think about meeting the needs of every learner, we're clearly going to consider the needs of our learners, whether it be in a special education or a regular education classroom. And it's really that it's to optimize learning for everybody, and it is scientifically based, which is what's so key. So if we're trying to have arguments on why we need to do things in any classroom, special education, regular education, it's about optimizing the access for everybody. And what that may look like may be very different, or it may be a universal tool that just has built-in supports. So we really want to reduce those barriers to learning. We want to have inclusion as best as possible that meets the needs of any learner. And always that thinking about that we actually do better to design for the edges not the middle. If you haven't ever watched the video, The Myth of Average, I encourage you to look it up on YouTube. It's a really great video that really addresses that there is no average student, and that for thinking about designing for lessons, we need to think about both ends and build towards those, and then we'll reach everything in the middle. And again, I'm going to kind of go through some of what this all applies to today, but really the principles of universal design for learning on how do we have multiple means for engagement so that anybody can engage, how can they represent what they know, because it may not be the same way for everybody, and the action and expression. And I love this because it's really about when we know, thinking about that there is equality and equity, but really if we can remove systematic barriers to learning, that we can have everyone can be participating on the same playing field with whatever they need. And that is so exciting about today's educational technology, because it really enables us to do that in such easier ways in any classroom with so many of the available technologies and just everyday devices now that kids have. If you want to know more about UDL, you can definitely take a look at these resources. CAST is a great resource for Universal Design for Learning. If you really want like a basic teacher understanding of UDL, I highly recommend this book, Dive into UDL. Luis Perez is a really great resource on AT, but he and Kendra put this book together that is like a great layman's read on Universal Design for Learning with some really great resources that they have, as well as on their website. So one thing to think about when we're talking about reading supports is going to be thinking about reading aloud accommodations. And it's hard to say whether or not simply, is there a simple way for us to judge, does listening impact comprehension or reading abilities? And we may say we think we know, but we may not know according to this. So there is actually a tool out there called the PAR, and this is actually the UPAR. The PAR is actually a paper-based version that was created by 2 educators, and it's actually available for free on Don Johnston's website. And the PAR, the paper version, is meant what the teacher, it's a one-to-one with the student. The teacher has the student read a silent passage at a particular grade level and then answer questions, and then goes through various human audio versions and text read audio versions to see how the student performs. Really great free tool, love it. Can be a little time consuming if you want to work with multiple students. Don Johnston, again, that can be found on their website, but they've created a computer-based version that has a subscription fee for it, where students can do this on their own. It's built into the system. Again, they can be completing it all at once, where you can assign a student to, again, silently read a passage and then answer multiple choice questions at a particular grade level, and then it will present them with human audio and text read audio versions of stories, and again, answering questions. The questions are read to them as well. And it will adapt as it goes along for the student, depending on how they perform. Why this can be so crucial is this test was actually a 7th grader that I had. So you can see 7th grader silently reading. Even at a 4th grade level, his comprehension was poor. And then put into the reading supports, the audio supports, and he really could shine. And we knew he had strong comprehension skills. What he needed was to be able to access the text with his ears, not with his eyes. And it was really impactful for me to actually share this with this young man. We think about so many of our kids lack confidence, that I could say, look, we know you have the skills. Look, you have the skills. You just proved it to me. This is also beneficial for teachers, because when they're putting materials together and we need to say we need it accessible, this is what they can understand why they needed it to be accessible. And even our school, when we started doing this, our teachers who were teaching reading felt we shouldn't provide those audio supports, but we know that there's 2 different skills. There's the decoding skills, where we know we need to teach them to read, but if we're working on comprehension, then we know decoding is a challenge, we need to take out that decoding component and really let that comprehension piece shine. And this was great information. Now my teachers understand when they ask me to do this test with students, so we can see what kind of supports do we need to give, and where those lie. So it's a really great tool. But again, there is the paper version available for free. Don't have to necessarily go for the computer version, but it's really great information to share with people as why those audio supports are so crucial and what kind of audio supports may be needed. Now, I will say that for some students who really struggle with comprehension as a skill as well as decoding, this may not be the tool that's going to show that, but it may give some information that starts a conversation. So I come across, say, a student I know needs one of those supports. Where can I go for those supports? Well, there's two big ones out there. If we think about that human voice, we're looking at Learning Ally. Learning Ally has a great bank of resources. They are great for many things. They provide so many parent resources. They have their own tools for which to access the materials. They are a subscription-based model, although I love them right now. They were providing free supports for schools during this time period, which is wonderful. They have textbooks, they have literature books, so it's really not only for a student to be using, you know, in middle school or high school, but college and beyond. They have, some of their books do not have the text that goes along with it, which can be a component as we think about with students who need to see the text as they listen, but that's not to discount the service because it's really wonderful. And as again, that young man that I showed you really needed that human voice. So this is the tool that I would get to him. And they have such a great library. If I had that text reader, or if money were a challenge, I would rely on Bookshare. We actually qualify all our students for Bookshare when they come to us, just because it is a free resource. It is free for any qualified users. They allow me as our school to qualify any student within the system, and it's nice because I can convert it to an individual membership when they leave our school. It is that digitized voice, so that's some of the challenges. Some of the students really don't like that. Some students actually don't mind it. I am always intrigued by some of the students who really actually like that kind of voice. They do always have the visual text along with the auditory. It works in any browser using Bookshare's site, but if you're on a third-party device like an iPad, you need a third-party app. So one of my favorites is Voice Dream Reader. There is a cost to it, but this developer has built in so many more robust voices to the Voice Dream Reader that really relying on the modern technology to make those voices sound better. So it's really a better tool to be using for those students who are relying on it if they're on an iPad. Dolphin Easy Reader is great for younger students, a little simpler interface, and it's free, so it's a great way to get started. So both great tools, Learning Ally and Bookshare. Sometimes we still give out paper. We are still a paper-based world, so we have to think about tools that help us with OCR, which is just optical character recognition. Our faculty room copier, when we were in school, had it actually built in, which was a really neat feature. So teachers could scan documents, could OCR it and have it sent to their email so that it was easier to provide students. But there are some great apps out there, and then the handheld pens. So for paper access, there's a variety of tools out there. I love that Voice Dream Reader. He came out with about a year or so ago a scanner app. It's a standalone scanner app, which is nice, but will also work with the Voice Dream Reader. So you could scan, or a student could scan multiple pages of, say, a textbook or any sort of material, and then it can take it over into Voice Dream Reader so they could listen to it many times and use some of the built-in features into Voice Dream Reader, such as annotations and note-taking and highlighting. So really like that combination if a student were using an iPad for, say. Seeing AI is Microsoft's version of a reader. Actually, Seeing AI is a really more robust app. It's designed for the blind, so there's a lot more in there that it can do, but its text reader is really great, and it's a free app, so that's also what's nice about it versus a Voice Dream Reader, which there is a one-time cost. Seeing AI, though, if you have a student who tends to go into a tool and then play with all the other things in there, may not be the tool because it does have some other features designed for those who are blind that allows them to, again, recognize money, recognize faces, that if they tend to play, it may be a little distracting. Claro ScanBen has been around for a while. They also have a PDF version for multiple pages. It's another great simple tool that they can scan some paper, have it read immediately, or again, their PDF version, do multiple pages to make it accessible. Snapverter from TextHelp is a really neat tool. You can take as long as it's not an image-based PDF, this works really well with Google. You can take a document, a PDF from somewhere online, and Snapverter installs right into Google Drive. And you simply, when you install it, they have a couple of folders, then to convert, and then prepared and done. And you simply drop it in the folder to convert, and by the magic of TextHelp, it converts it and makes it accessible and has it in this done folder. It's really amazing. And what it can be handy if you're working with just a few students who need this, I actually installed it when I had a student who really was working with this. I installed Snapverter on his Google Drive with him and then shared his Snapverter folder to me. So I could actually on my computer drop anything in and it would go into that shared folder, so he had immediate access. Speechify is a really kind of neat tool that's been around for a couple of years, really more Mac-based. He had focused on the laptop. He's gotten more into the phone and the iPad, but this young man is really remarkable. He's dyslexic, and when he was a student at Brown, he had trouble managing all the work. So he had a computer background. He designed a program to help himself, and that has become Speechify. His name is Cliff. He's really fun to talk to. But what's neat, again, a student could take multiple pictures. So he would take pictures of, a chapter of a book, a textbook, and it turns it kind of into its own audio file where it can show just a few words, can show all the text. Really, he's done a lot with it. Really a neat tool to play with. There's a cost that layers based on how many pages you use it, but really neat for kind of, again, he created it as audiobooks on the go. Really neat. And then there's all these handheld pens out there. The one I have seen work the best is this C pen. It's a standalone pen that a student could highlight across pages and it reads aloud to it. I love the quality of the voice. It's really simple to use. There are headphones, so a student could be using it in class. They actually have a version that has a dictionary built in and one without. And that one without, they're actually really working with testing companies to get it as an approved device. So things like the ACT, the SAT, so students could have an accessible tool to make that so that they could listen to it. Hard part about that, if I'm talking about a couple of dollars, few here or there for some of these other tools, the C pen is a cost. It's about $250 per pen. But it is a really robust tool if you really need something like that. Particularly, I think about, so often on finals and things that get locked down and students don't have access to the technology of screen readers, this would really be a great tool. I know some schools in Ireland and the UK have really invested in this for those kind of purposes for students. If you're in a browser, Chrome browser, Read and Write for Chrome has really great reading supports for students to be able to listen to the text, to do some highlighting and things like that. Read and Write for Chrome has a whole lot of other features in there, but it is a great built-in text reader for Chrome, along with other things they do. They have a free trial for a while, and then some of the tools are available for free. Some of the others do have a cost to them. So Read and Write is TextHelp. The other big company out there in assistive technology is, again, Don Johnston. They have their Snap and Read. So it has some other features that are a little different than Read and Write for Chrome, but again, it is a great way to make accessible websites and PDFs. They also have some neat study tools that you can be taking notes right online. So if you're thinking about reading instruction, maybe in a science or a social studies, or it could be any class where if they're having to do some reading on a website and take notes at the same time, they have that built into their tool all at once. Both of these, again, and I will put a link at the end, these companies have great YouTube channels to learn more about these tools, or you can always reach out to them directly to find out a bit more how those work if that's something you're interested in. And Microsoft's Immersive Reader, there's not a day I don't seem to go by on Twitter that I'm finding Immersive Reader is working with yet another tool. It's really quite amazing what Microsoft has done with their learning tools and this particularly Immersive Reader. If you are happen to be working with Microsoft, we're not a Microsoft school, but if you are or know somebody who really needs that, you can let me know and I can put you in touch with, I call him Microsoft Mike. He's this great guy on Twitter who's really leading the charge on this. but this is their most updated tool where Microsoft Learning Tools availabilities, and this immersive reader, which has read aloud, it has highlighting, they can adjust the fonts, the spacing, colors, it will syllabicate words, give you parts of speech. There's so much that's going on that it just keeps working with more and more tools. I know it now works with things like Wakelet, and I think, I don't know, there was about 3 other tools I've seen recently. So it's a really neat tool, immersive reader, the way it works. There's areas where it is free, so you may be using it anywhere. Like I use Flipgrid, so that's another great place that it might come across if a student uses OneNote. But it's just a really another great reading tool that they have built in some other features that you don't see anywhere else. So if you happen to be in my last session, you will know my love of this tool called ClassKick. ClassKick is really a blank whiteboard style tool, and it's not necessarily a reading support per se, but I'm going to give you examples of what you can do with it that I think may give you some thoughts on how you can add in. So I was talking in my previous session more about just word reading, so we're talking about reading, is that, you know, you can have some recording feature in here. So I might be having students record themselves. I may be recording, giving directions, but I more pull this as an example of, you can see all the tools that are available, but this recording feature is what can come in very key when we're thinking about reading and providing accessible content to students. Again, this is another example of reading supports that, again, you can have students practicing reading, building in some different activities, but to take it up to a notch, actually, let me briefly go to ClassKick, and I pulled in some more specific examples of if you were doing a reading comprehension level, and it was easier to pull it in here. So here is, again, a lesson just in ClassKick, and this is actually one that was in their library that I borrowed from somebody else. But just to give you an idea of what you could do with reading comprehension, you could pull in, this teacher pulled in an article from ReadWorks right onto here. You can take it in as a screenshot, you can drop it in as a PDF, but here you could record yourself reading the story. So that may be a great way to build in an activity where students can listen to it if they choose. They do not have to. It's also nice because then you can build in different activities right within here. Maybe you want different questions that are on what are on the ReadWorks site, or you want to record yourself reading them. So here the teacher recorded themselves reading the question, and then the students could mark the answer. They could circle it because there's a pen feature. Then here they again recorded themselves recording the question, but here's again when we talked about different ways for students to show their knowledge. Here the students could type their response, or they could record themselves. So that might be a key feature. We know sometimes students, when we try to have them respond to us in a written form when they struggle with learning, that we don't always necessarily get their best response. We know so often they can explain to us in person. Well, it's hard in a small group or even a larger classroom to do that with every student. Within this tool, ClassKick, you create one set of slides and it's shared to a class with a code. No complicated sign-ins, it's just a basic code, and then they go in and each student has their own set of slides that appears within here. And again, they can all work independently, and you could have students typing, recording themselves, whatever may need be that is best suited for them to demonstrate their knowledge. And again, they built in multiple activities within here. Another example is here was kind of another independent practice. So if maybe you're talking about the main idea, and again, here the teacher recorded themselves giving these same explanations. So for those students who may need to audio listen to better build their comprehension of what the activity is that you are doing, or they can iRead if they want. And then they went through, and again, here they can record some directions. You can record what this piece says. They have to do various different activities in here, underline, circle the main idea. And of course, right now, when many of us doing remote learning, this is an ideal situation because you can be doing these activities that we might have been doing previously on paper. They can be doing those same activities, but then again, they can do the activities that are further down. They can type or, again, record their voice to make it easier to best demonstrate their knowledge. And another example, again, thinking about parts of a story. We always talking about that they need to, again, the teacher recorded their directions. How does this apply to what the activity that they were doing? And going through some of those activities. And then having this teacher just great design of, you know, the plot chart and how did that happen, and that they needed to drag the things over and have a different activity, because you can make things draggable within here so that the students can just simply move them around as they need be. So again, this is just a blank whiteboard style tool that you can really do so much with. Another idea could be that I was going to be doing the book Hatchet until I found out one of my students had already read it. But you can create things, again, that might be worksheet based, but bring them in to build in a whole different variety of activities. So I created this companion guide for Hatchet, pulled in some great paper things that they could do different activities with, but then created examples of tables and things that the students were going to fill in. And with the same code, again, I can go back into Class Kick on a regular basis with my students. And as long as they're using the same name, or we actually have the paid version where they can sign in with Google, they can go back in and access that same slides and build off of it. Or it may be I create several different activities depending on how you're using it. But it's a nice one place that the students can go to. I can create a whole variety of activities, but when you have the ability to record yourself as the teacher, or the students can record, it can benefit those reading activities for them to listen and express themselves for that comprehension piece without having to deal with print. So if you're thinking about differentiated contextual reading, most of us are familiar with Newsela or News ELA, depending on your camper pronunciation. I love the ability to pull into those articles and differentiate the levels. I love that also Newsela has built in now that as the teacher, you can kind of control that on your end. You can either have it assign it at that predetermined level, but now that you can go in and adjust that, because that was one of my challenges when I first started with Newsela, was that my students could adjust it, which is kind of how I ended up with Freckle. Freckle is very much like Newsela, but again, on the teacher end, I can adjust the level myself. The students have no access to adjusting the level of the articles. Other than that, they're very similar. Nonfiction articles, that can be done at any level. If you haven't seen one, what's great about this is, particularly when you're thinking about a more general class, you know, if maybe a regular education classroom where the teacher really needs to do some differentiating, and we know that's so hard and can be time consuming, these sites are great because you can take one article and have it at one level and then a lower level, but the lower level is not about differentiation of content and comprehension, it's just sentence structure and vocabulary. So a student may be able to read this at their own level, but can still participate in a class conversation, and nobody knows the difference. It can be done in a paper format, or it can be done in their digital format. Digital format thus makes it accessible so that I may also adjust, cause some adjustment in the level, but it can be adjusted for multiple students at once very easily within the tool, whether you're in Newsela or Freckle. Really like them both. Again, great place that you, for a particularly broader class that you need differentiation for these nonfiction articles and their multiple choice questions, really great sites. They both have a free level and a paid level. More the paid level gets to some of that teacher data that you may need, but we often use them both at the free level, although Freckle we do for our math side of things. So have a little bit more of that back end. Then ReWordify. I'm going to play this a little bit. I won't play the whole thing. If you were in my last session, this will give you a little bit more. ReWordify is a free website. It's been free for a while. It's kind of basic in what it does, but you can take text from anywhere and simplify it.
ReWordify.com is a new, free website that can help you understand more of what you read. When you see a web page or anything with lots of hard words, ReWordify.com can almost instantly simplify it, replacing all the hard words with easier ones, so you can understand more, faster, without needing a dictionary. When you read, do you see a lot of words that you don't understand? Do you wish there were a fast, easy way to understand more of what you read? When you try to look up words in the dictionary, do you get frustrated because the definitions in dictionaries are confusing and difficult to understand? Well, now there's a new way to understand more of what you read and become a better reader. Rewordify.com takes difficult words and phrases and rewords them into easier versions. All the rewordings are highlighted. If you hover your mouse over the highlighted word or tap it with your finger if you're using a tablet or a phone, you'll see the original harder word to help you become familiar with that word and how it's used. If you want to learn a different way, you can switch everything around and have the site highlight the hard words and you mouse over or tap to see the easier replacements. Or, if you prefer, you can have the site display words like this with the original hard words and then the easier rewording displayed right after, all at the same time.
So again, I have a link to this video and a spot that I'll show you at the end, and you can find this because I don't want to spend too much time, but I wanted to give you an essence of what it does. So it's not a necessarily lexile level changing, which is something that Nuzella and Freckle would be more doing. However, it is a nice kind of setup that if you needed an easy spot to take something into, and just, again, you can copy and paste from any website, anywhere. They also have a lot of text already there, literature text, particularly for older students, where this is already done. And within the settings, the student can choose, or the teacher can choose, how they want it to look in these various forms that they're talking about. And again, it's a totally free website. You can build in different activities with vocabulary if you're the teacher. So it's just amazing that it exists for free. It's been around for a very long time, that will do some of this work that these other tools do, but it's a free and accessible to anybody. So when we're talking about comprehension, there's a variety of tools out there. If you were in last session, I might go into these a little bit more for you. Actively Learn and Insert Learning, two great tools. Insert Learning is Chrome only. Actively Learn device agnostic. I'm going to explain them more in a minute about what's really great about them. ReadWorks, we've talked about. ReadWorks has been around for so long. They have such a great bank of a variety of articles that can be leveled. I mean, nonfiction, fiction, wonderful site, and again, digital and print-based as well. Common Lit is a free site that for teachers, and there's a whole variety of articles in there. What's nice about these articles is they've already embedded questions. And again, the questions are embedded throughout the text, which again, I'm explaining a little bit more with Actively Learn and Insert Learning. But that can be so crucial if we think about our kids with working memory challenges and that they can't get to the end of an article and then answer the questions. Well, Common Lit is free, questions embedded throughout, so they read a bit and then there's a question. They can't be changed though, but that's, it can be a great tool. If you like the questions, the articles, it's a great place to check out. If you have students who really need those reading supports, I was telling the last group, 8th grade, All Quiet on the Western Front, not my favorite book, and you can tell because I still remember it now this many years later. But how I got through was those black and yellow, Cliff Note books, which has become Spark Notes. There's various versions online. Lit Charts is a great one. There is a subscription cost that goes along with it. But when you need students who really need those things broken down, Lit Charts is a great place. So more about Insert Learning and more specifically Actively Learn. Insert Learning will be very similar. I don't use it because we're not a fully Chrome-based environment. We're more of an iPad-based environment, but I know people who use it and love it. So Actively Learn, what is great about it is they do have a whole bank of nonfiction articles as well. You can actually upload your own articles, your own PDFs, about 3 free a month. And they also have a bank of literature books. And you can, if you use their free version, you can rent the book for students for a period of time. We actually this year, because we were using it so much, we've gone to their paid version where we have full access to the library. What's nice as a school to also have full access is I can share my materials with other teachers that I've done. And this is a tool that I really think about. We're using it, yes, as an LD school, but this tool could be used in any classroom by anywhere. It is not an assistive technology tool. It's just some of the things that they have built in here. Really think about, again, going to the edges. We're going to accommodate for everybody. So if you're thinking about, I use this in literature, when we think about having kids read longer books, you say read to the end of the chapter and then remember this and go answer these set of questions. Well, for kids with working memory, processing issues, that's really a challenge. So what you can take is, you can take a book and you can embed questions anywhere throughout the text. So it can be 3 paragraphs, it can be however many paragraphs that the students can then know, okay, I only have to look yay far up to find the answers to this. So that's fine for any student, but by doing this, you're clearly accounting for that student who has maybe the processing or working memory issues, and thus saying, okay, this is fine for everybody, but I'm really thinking about this student here. I'm going to, give me 1 second, turn my mail off so I stop dinging. So that's really crucial. It also is text that students can listen to. So if they choose to it, they can highlight it and listen to it. I also like this because the teacher can put notes throughout the text if they want to. So you may say, hey, clue in here, we're going to talk about this in class tomorrow. Again, good to give a clue to our students who might need a heads up so they can prepare for that discussion tomorrow, but really would not harm any student for that clue into, hey, this is going to be part of class discussion. Students can click on words to define them and it reads the definition to them. So Actively Learn I love because they built in a lot of supports that I think about for my LD learners, but really could be for any learner. The questions can be short answer, or they can be multiple choice. And there's a grading system within Actively Learn. So you can see my students, these kids were proficient. I can look at all my students' answers. I could sort by one student just to see how they're doing on a particular set of questions. They can make revisions on their responses. My students actually have a rubric with which they have to follow because they have to achieve proficient or advanced, or they have to fix it. But so there's so much within here that it is a tool that I really think is great for any classroom, and again, they have science articles, they have social studies articles, let alone the literature text that can be either rented again if you're in the free version, or if you're in their paid version, you have a whole access to of this bank with really just a great tool that I encourage, if you're really focusing on reading comprehension, exploring. I won't go, I leave this in here for you to access later because I didn't want to spend too much time on it. But again, this is something that a short video you can see about kind of the learning features. I'll play a short bit of it about what Actively Learn can do.
Actively Learn's platform is designed to help you activate, support, and reveal students' thinking so that they read for depth. When students read your assigned text, they have several tools to get them the support they need. Students can hear the text being read aloud.
He has erected a multitude of new offices.
A built-in learner's dictionary lets students immediately look up difficult vocabulary with minimal interruption to reading flow. Students can also translate the text in one of many different languages. Furthermore, instructional annotations provide scaffolding to fill knowledge gaps. The scaffolding can be differentiated between groups of students. Students are encouraged to annotate and Actively Learn with ample space in the margins. To encourage strategic thinking, they can choose a category for their notes, which teachers can control. Notes can be shared within the class. It gives reluctant speakers a chance to participate, and the conversation doesn't have to wait until class. In Actively Learn, assessments are not just for testing. Instead, it is used. So
again, a quick more explanation about some of the things that you can do in there. So you can see we're really thinking about, yes, the LD learner who needs those supports, but you're addressing a lot of other learners' needs right within one tool. And I encourage you again to look up more about that if it's a tool you're interested in. ReadWorks, again, has a great, I love this tool, their Article-A-Day. Again, I think you could use this across curricularly, in social studies and science or an ELA class, where you really has a quick, easy tool for a 10-minute routine, beginning of class, end of class. I had one of our tutorial, which is our kind of ELA class teachers, really had been using this a lot, and I found it's been great to use kind of beginning of a science class and introduce a lesson or a topic. So again, cross-curricularly with some great supports to build comprehension skills. Another way you can think about comprehension, I always think about it for the speech language people who might be here. We have a wonderful speech language person who consults with our classes, and she really got me into, when I was doing work with her, about using pictures to build comprehension skills. There's so much more to what a picture and what kids understand, that we just don't look at it on the surface, but there is a lot that we need to get kids to think about, that she really taught me about language that's just in an image. I'm sure Tammy's probably nodding her head right now. And you know, from either using at an elementary level, just a picture book, and she would just take a page out of a book, and she made a like 3-day lesson out of a basic picture, but really getting kids to think about different layers of comprehension from an image. So I also encourage, we're not just talking about comprehension from words, but really it's reading comprehension, but it's really comprehension as a whole, and that kids can take a lot from images. If you have older students, this is a great site from the New York Times. They have various pictures. I definitely think it's older kids, and you do want to preface what the image is, because sometimes there's images that might be too sensitive to work with kids in schools, but it's a really nice site that you can bring into a class and say, hey, what do we see here? And I have never taken pictures, again, where you can really break it down to the things they see. What do you think is going on here? What story would you tell? And you can even take it into a writing lesson of before, now, and after. So it just, again, this site, but again, if you're working with younger students, there are some wonderful picture books out there that you can really do some wonderful language lessons with, to get kids to think about comprehension as a broader language skill that is really crucial for our kids who struggle with comprehension. Another way to do this, again, listening to text. If you're working with younger students, I love Epic Books. One of our lower school teachers had found this a couple of years ago. It is free for educators. Do you know that if you have the educator account and you set up your students, they only have access to the books during what kind of academic hours? I think it's 8 to 4. It's specific on their website. Families can access it on their own after hours. There is a cost to it. But a really great resource for accessible text. We use it in some of our lower school literature classes during the academic day, for just a nice variety of accessible text for younger students. Because if you think about a Learning Ally and a Bookshare, which are great, there's not, they don't have the images that younger kids can so rely on and enjoy when reading a book, where Epic adds that in. A new one that I had come across recently was also Rivet, which is also another bank of accessible texts that are out there. So something else to explore if you're working with younger students. So part of reading comprehension and comprehension as a whole is, how do our students demonstrate that knowledge? And, so often for historically, it's paper, pencil based, maybe now more typing, but kind of getting some different ways that kids can do that. And I kind of shared before a companion guide. I'm going to build on that a little bit more. And this really came out of, I had a friend introduce me a number of years ago to the Reading Comprehension Booster app. It's an iOS app really designed for younger students. I'll show you an example in a minute. But it got to me thinking, how can I do this for older students in a more robust way? So this is a couple of screenshots of the Reading Comprehension Booster app. It could be done on a teacher's device and projected, and you're filling in as a class, or kids could have it on their own. It's just a nice, simple way to them to think about different story parts and building those kind of literature style activities and putting it all together. Really kind of neat. I love the puzzle pieces when they're talking about text to text, text to, man, however that may be. They can do some recordings in here as well, so it's accessible with typing and or recordings, and just short little snippets, drag in a picture, do a little writing, however it may be. But really designed for younger students. So I work with middle schoolers. This wasn't gonna fly so well with them. So I took that idea and I kind of gave you the hatchet. This one's a little bit more elaborated one I had done on the Red Kayak, and took in various components to create a companion guide. This was done in Keynote, could be done in PowerPoint, could be done in Google Slides, where again, I brought in some kind of paper-based activities, but this way it was accessible to the kids that they could dictate, they could type, In Keynote, they could write if they wanted. We built in a whole variety of activities that to do it was dealing with literary terms, different elements of the story. And it was nice because, again, like I talked about in Class Kick earlier, it was always accessible that they could go back on and see it. Nice done it if I do it in Google Slides, because then I always have access. Keynote, I kind of have to keep track of a little differently. But allowed my students to demonstrate their knowledge in sort of different snippets of ways. Any writing assignment we did, you know, it was a single slide, so it wasn't overwhelming that they were writing something longer. And then they had this to go back and refer to as we read through the text. And we would read a bit, and then we would go on and complete some activity I had designed in here, but building off of one file that at the end, I could look at what the students had built and done, as could they. For a lower school, for kind of comprehension, I love this. One of my great lower school teachers created this. Actually, she's created most of the lower school examples in here. She really got on how to use Keynote with these kids, and she took Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. She built in at the beginning some various vocabulary activities in the initial slides, and then she scanned each of the pages of the book, and she recorded herself reading, because you can do that here in Keynote. I think, I'm pretty sure Slides has added that in their web version to add audio. So that she recorded it, and then she recorded herself reading the questions, and she gave the students the options to either type or record themselves giving the answers. So again, this could be done in any classroom. It's just allowing for accommodation for those students who do better with audio comprehension. Again, going back to that chart at the beginning, where a student who's going to understand better because they listen, and also accounting, they may give you better information of their understanding if they're just using their voice and taking out print. But did a student have to use those accommodations that were built in there? No, they could choose whether or not they wanted to listen or if they wanted to record. But it was available for anyone. And she made this and then simply shared it out to them. So she made one copy. She said it took her very much at the beginning, but once she was done, this took several weeks of activities for in-class work. And she had a whole variety of different activities. And again, sometimes we think about a lot of work, but now then she had this for the next years to come with a similar group of students. And again, she built in a whole plethora of slides and different activities. But again, accounting for that kid's comprehension ability with a really fun activity that the kids really engaged with. If I love Flipgrid for a whole variety of things. Flipgrid, if you're not familiar with it, is just a video platform. So people, again, use it. You're thinking about using your voice to express information. This does it with video. Although if you have students who hate video, I have a student who likes to put things in front of his face recording. But they have a whole library of ideas on their website for how to use it at various levels for language arts. Again, when you access this, these are links to their library of ideas for Flipgrid. I'm going to share with you for a few. So right off, this is actually right off their website. So one, if I was talking previously, you can do a phonics activities with Flipgrid. And again, it's just a video recording, so you're really getting that voice. You can have them do fluency drills and understanding comprehension. You can compare and contrast details and stories. So maybe you're having a class discussion, again, remotely maybe now, but even or homework or in class where kids can record themselves and then listen to each other and they can comment to each other, again, depending on the settings you have on there. Flipgrid is free. Actually, Microsoft bought them a couple of years ago, which made them free. And also was nice because it built in some of those, more of those education concerns that we have on the back end. It is password protected. So a lot of education considerations built within Flipgrid for the teacher community. But you can have explain events and procedures. So if you're thinking about comprehension across curricularly, this is a great for social studies conversations on a topic. Maybe you're having a science lab explanation. Again, taking away print to gain understanding. So we really, if we're talking about comprehension, we want understanding. And for some of our kids, really, we have to take out that print component and allow them to express themselves with their voice to demonstrate what they know better. And here's another great tool to do that with. And I shared this before, but I love, this is, I think, a great example. Again, one of the reasons I love Twitter for things, but here was a teacher allowed students to record their responses. Again, They were doing a retell, so you get that whole thing. Maybe a student is filling out that worksheet, but maybe a student who really struggles with handwriting, with spelling, or just putting their ideas in print, allowing them to complete that same activity, but just with their voice to gain comprehension. Two other tools to think about comprehension. If you're a science or social studies teacher, or know somebody who is teaching science or social studies, although I have now found also some great literature components, particularly on plot elements, things like that, you want to make friends with Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle, as I talked about Actively Learn earlier, where you can embed questions into text, Edpuzzle allows you to embed questions into video. It's amazing. We used it for free forever. We actually finally had to go paid because our teachers use it so much. Our bank of library was too big, but you could definitely start with free for quite a while. And it's nice because you can take in, they have a bank of videos that teachers have used. You can take someone else's and edit it. You can take a video in from anywhere into the website. You can crop it down. I remember when I was teaching a social studies class a number of years ago, I found a great History Channel video, but it was an hour long. But I brought it in, made 15-minute chunks, embedded questions in there. They can be short answer, and they can be multiple choice questions. You can make it so students can't skip a question to move on. Students can re-watch the part of the video to get the question correct. And on the teacher end, you can actually see that. You can see how many times they re-watched before answering the question. They do have, if you're a language arts person, they again have some really fun, I think of those short Pixar clips without words, that they have really some great plot elements and literary things that are within there. But if you have content area teachers, it's really wonderful. It's also very handy for remote learning for literature books. I have a book from Amazon with the WhisperSync built in and could get some parts to my students in there and embed questions through that as well. So they could see the text, they could hear the text and have those embedded questions in that format. Really great tool. Nearpod is a website. They have a free version and then there's materials you can purchase, or they have a higher levels of paid levels. There is a whole lot in Nearpod that I could probably spend forever on, but for comprehension, they have ELA materials, they have science materials, social studies materials, so cross-curricularly. With what's neat is a lot of it is accessible, but there's also a lot of great activities that allow for, again, a differentiation of how students represent knowledge. There's some game-based things, there's drawing activities, there's the ability to add audio as the teacher in. So if you want to be reading certain things in there, they've really built onto this platform. I love that actually they've been up their level of accessibility right now for people to get familiar with it during remote and distant learning, which may have sold my school to go further with it. But even as a teacher on my own, I have used this for a while in different content areas just because the ability to differentiate the level of engagement. And again, it's not a tool for LD kids, it's a tool for any student, but some of the supports that you can build into it are what make a difference for kids. And as a teacher, if you're having a live lesson, you control the slides on your end. So the students you have those distracted students who like to flip through things, they can't. They have to stay on the screen they are on. And you also can see when students leave the app within that tool. So neat one to check out. Always thinking about how can you use Book Reader for students to demonstrate their knowledge. They have audio, they have drawing. There's so much you can do to allow kids to demonstrate their knowledge, and a tool like Book Reader, they have an iOS app and it's Chrome available. Thinking about other ways for creative engagement for kids to demonstrate knowledge, there's a great tool called Anchor where kids can make their own podcast to demonstrate their understanding. And to even elaborate on that, I had a teacher this year who had students just made a podcast in a slides program. Once they have the audio built in, Keynote or slides, the kids paired together and made their own podcast recording, and they actually did it as a class. So each slide was a different group of students. But how fun would it be to teach kids? Podcasts are so popular right now, but here Anchor, they could make their own and maybe you could publish it. Thinking about if we're trying to assess comprehension, thinking about game-based, Kahoot, very popular. If you're not familiar with, I would encourage you to check out Quizzes as a very similar tool. But what's nice is it takes away some components for our students. One, the questions and answers can be read to the student. They can turn that out on their own. And also it puts the questions and answers on the student's device. Nothing needs to be projected. So those kids who have trouble looking up reading and then remembering on their device. Quizzes takes that away from them. It's all on their own device. They don't have to be looking up and down, and it goes across any device. Also thinking about video storytelling. There's, I love this example. There's a great, if you haven't checked out this book, Ditch That Textbook, it's a really great resource. But that you can look up ideas they share in this book about video storytelling with Adobe Spark, or even using something like Instagram to video storytelling, although now they probably all want to do it in TikTok, but I'm not going to go there for your sake. And just briefly, I want to think about the idea of when using graphic novels for teaching comprehension. Again, we go back to that idea of using pictures. And when I first taught with a graphic novel, I was really unsure how it was going to go. And it was actually one of the most fun books I've taught with, because there, again, was so much to get in depth of not just the text, but what was happening in images that conveyed information for kids. And I love this great article from Kyle Redford. She's wonderful. About why graphic novels are great for that reading conversation. If you don't know who she is, again, her husband, Jamie Redford, is the one who did the Big Picture film. They have a dyslexic son. And actually, she just recently learned her adult daughter is ADHD. But using graphic novels is a great way to support comprehension. Again, you take away less print, and there's so many great graphic novels out there. I know one of the, I think it was the Newbery Award winner this year, was a graphic novel, really wonderful book. But thinking about what else could you do that to support reading, well, there's some great tools that we can even build on that. There's Storyboard That, which again, kids can create their own comics. So you can build over reading that graphic novel, and then they have to convey their understanding in different ways. I also had a teacher use Storyboard That in a social studies class for kids to explain their understanding of the unit of study. Similarly, in Book Creator, you can create, kids can create comics to demonstrate their understanding. Again, take a graphic novel and maybe they have to rewrite a scene or explain something in their own understanding. That's why I love this. And you could even, if you teach ELA, take it to a writing component while you teach reading comprehension with a graphic novel. They can explain their understanding or do a writing project with this. Buncee is a tool that's kind of a slides / comic understanding, but again, for kids who are really visually based, this may be the better way to creatively express their understanding of things, is using these different tools that use images rather than words to express their understanding. And then one I came across too, another that's a great site, is that they can, this Pixton site, that they can create comics as well. And again, you could layer this into your reading of a graphic novel, or maybe this creation of comics layers into your basic novel reading. Like if I was doing the Red Kayak, maybe I would have them create some scenes in their understanding of information using images versus words, which again, for some of our LD kids, that is their strength to use. Some use their voice, some use images. So that's a lot of information, and I want to make sure we get to some questions. This is a tiny URL that links to a YouTube channel where I've just curated a whole variety of snippets of videos that explain about these tools and others. So if you want to learn more, I encourage you to go there. Also reach out to any of these companies online. They love to give demonstrations. Follow them on Facebook or Twitter. There's some wonderful information that comes out across that way. And some great hashtags to follow if you are on Twitter. AT Chat being a great one. They run anytime, but they have a weekly Twitter chat at 8 on Wednesdays Eastern Standard Time. EdTech Chat, which goes pretty more global, but you might jump in there on Mondays, and Sat Chat on Saturday mornings. But sometimes they're just kind of hashtags to follow to find good information about reading comprehension tools across the board. And hopefully we have a few minutes for questions, and love to hear any thoughts. Again, if you have questions later, you can always email me at any time, or connect with me on Twitter, which I love to connect with people anyway. So if you have any questions, maybe if you have that participants box, use the hand raise or signal us that you have a question. Happy to answer anything I can.
Sharon, that was amazing. We do have a question from Ranch. If you want to, Ranch 42, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, that would be great.
What about copyright laws?
Well,
with that?
none of those tools would you run into an issue, because like an Actively Learn or anything like that, they have worked with publishers and such to make that accessible.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great question, though.
El Bruto? You want to unmute yourself, please?
Hi, sorry about that.
Hi.
There were so many wonderful websites, and of course, we need time to play around in each one. Will you make available your slide presentation in the course materials folder?
Yes, yes. We will be putting it in there. And actually where we're talking right now, if you people came in after, yes, we will definitely make it available. And if someone didn't get it at the beginning, well, we're so that is accessible as well, but we will make sure it gets into the folder as well.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And if for some reason you don't get it there, you can again always email me or find me on Twitter. Again, it's splante@southportschool.org, but we will make sure it gets in the folder.
Any other questions? Well, I am gonna thank you, everyone, and thank you, Sharon, so much. You have shared so many resources with us. I'm sure everyone that has attended all day, it's been a great day.
I appreciate the opportunity, and again, sorry to overwhelm your brains on a Wednesday afternoon at the end of a school year, but again, always reach out if you research things and have more questions. Always happy to connect with people to elaborate more.
Yeah, this session is recorded and will be available on the Patent YouTube channel in the near future. The patent literacy team will also be creating supports that are aligned to the presentations at the symposium to maximize learning for families and educators. In order to be eligible for the certificate of attendance or the Act 48, you as participants need to attend the keynote, attend one session per time slot, and then submit your attendance or your Act 48 in that last folder on Schoolology. There's one for each day, and this must be completed by Friday the 19th. They won't be able to backtrack any of that. So if there's any more questions for Sharon, we can absolutely stay on, but you know, for a couple more minutes, we have at least, you know, 5 minutes more. Tomorrow is the next session is at 8:30, and we hope that everyone's going to attend tomorrow. So Sharon, if there's any questions, please unmute yourself, raise your hand, and we'll unmute you. And
Randy, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to, as far as the copyright question, I think she was
in the middle
asking,
of a thing here.
Oh, hang on.
okay, I can.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yep.
for the copyright question, I think she was asking because the person scanned in the book, with a chance of meatballs.
Yes, as long as you're using something like that within, like it's not going outside of your school, you would be safe. Yes, that's a great point, Randy. Thank you for clarifying. Yes, if you're creating things for, and particularly given the copyright laws related to working with students with learning differences, but yes, she did not create that and ship it out anywhere. She just created it for use in her classroom. So thus you are covered, but that's a really great point. Thank you. Diane?
I just had a question about submitting the attendance. It looks like a Google form. So once we fill it out and we click submit, does it go right to it, or is there some way we're supposed to put it in that folder?
It does go right to, once it's submitted, it will go to a list, and then they'll compare the sessions to make sure names are included. But thank you for asking.
Megan?
Thank you.
Have you used Seesaw yet? Because a lot of these, go ahead.
No, we don't use Seesaw specifically, but I know teachers who do and love it. Particularly lower school students, right? It's actually a great thing to bring. I'm glad you brought that up. I always forget about it because we don't use it because we don't engage with our parents that way. But yes, Seesaw I think is a really great tool. Is another, particularly I find elementary level, for kids to express their thinking and learning, similar to you, right, like a flip grid or other tools that allow them to draw. Really great point, Megan.
Yeah, because we're just using it for next year. So I wanted to look at that before I look into some of these apps, maybe see what apps these do that I could do.
Yeah, if you are going to Seesaw, you're probably not going to need, you're not going to necessarily need the flip grid because they're already doing it. Kids can annotate on their work to explain their thinking. Yeah, Seesaw is wonderful for many things.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Gail?
Have you used Nearpod, or not Nearpod, what's it called? Oh, Pear Deck or Woo Clap?
Oh, I don't know Woo Clap. I know Pear Deck. Yeah, it's funny because my previous session we talked about it. Pear Deck is a really great tool. Different than Nearpod in that it has great activities to build in, but it doesn't have the content. So you have to bring in your own content. So in a Google Slides, really it's a Google add-on now at this point in time. So you would have to have the content already in Google Slides, and then you would add in the Pear Deck activities to support it. It's great. But if you were looking for content already in that place, that Pear Deck doesn't do that.
Okay.
But it is great for reinforcement activities.
Thanks.
So which, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so I work with at-risk high school. So which of these, there's so many great ones, and they all look fantastic. And I'm like, okay, just let me go into the candy store. So I'm looking at that going, oh my gosh, which one do I pick?
Right.
So that's but basically I want to engage my students. I want them to feel like it's meaningful projects when they're doing them. So, and I guess it goes back to individual learning styles and things like that, but which do you find is the most useful for the upper levels?
That's a good question. And what's hard is, if you're talking cross-curricularly, where you're going to address, are you talking specifically like ELA, or are you talking across the
ELA,
board?
yes. I'm an ELA teacher. So I want to make, first of all, they hate English, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm trying to make it fun, but at the same time meaningful, and so that they gain something from it, not just do it, because that doesn't work either. So I want to find the best ways. I looked at the cartoon. I can think of a couple of students right off the top of my head. Creating a cartoon would be absolutely phenomenal, but not someone else. Like
so that's a great idea that you could do, and I've seen a lot of examples out there. It's kind of create like a choice board of activities. That's what I've done when I when I had a group of 8th graders. So I might create a choice board of, here's a couple of cartoons, here's maybe you're going to make a video, here you can make a movie, here you can write if you want. So if you create and that kind of goes back to that universal design for learning. If you create some choice of activities, and you create the overarching goal of what you want them to do. So I want you to explain your understanding of this chapter or the main idea. And then say, okay, you can record yourself. You can make it, give them a variety of activities that will help them meet that end goal, but support their strengths and best get that information out to you. That way, you don't have to if you create the overarching goal that they have to meet, you don't have to pick the underarching task, just give them options. And that really is empowering to them. I actually sometimes begin the year, so you can think about for next year, I force them to experience each one in a small format. I force them to make a movie, using clips or Spark Video. I force them to make a cartoon, in short examples, and then they realize what their strengths are. And then by mid-year, I give them the choice board. Okay, when we have this, which do you want to do?
Okay, so you let them experience it first too.
Yeah.
So they get past that, okay, I'm comfortable with this now, but I've never tried this.
Exactly.
Okay.
And some students are surprised what they think they're going to like. It may be drawing. Maybe they do their own drawing. I have a student right now who he finally got Keynote and Apple Pencil on an iPad, and he draws beautiful artwork. So his examples of understanding have been artwork for me. But forcing everyone kind of out of their comfort zone for a little while because they don't know what they don't know, and you don't always, but it's great for them to experience different ways. And then give them those which will empower them hopefully once they have that choice that, hey, I get to do what I want to do that's going to best meet my strengths and show my knowledge.
Okay.
Particularly
Right,
the
so
upper grades, choice can go a long way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have given them choice on some projects.
Yeah.
But my choices were limited.
Yes,
Like
you do
now
have to.
Now you've put the candy store in front of me.
Yeah,
So now I
exactly.
can take some things that's free and just kind of test them out to see
Right.
how they like them.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. We have 2 more questions and then we're going to have to end our session today. So Gail and then Jody.
I just wanted to ask, what grades do you teach?
Me?
Yes.
Currently I teach 7th graders. I mainly have been teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th graders the last couple of years. But I've kind of I've taught from K to 12 over the years.
And do you teach students with learning disabilities?
Yes, our school is actually only for students with learning disabilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what school is that?
It's called the Southport School. We're an independent school in Connecticut just for kids with language-based learning disabilities.
Thanks. You do a great job.
Thank you.
Jody?
Hi, Sharon, thank you so much. This is Jody. Thank you so much for all that you've shared today. This has been very insightful and delightful. My question is, have you used the app called Cami? And if so, do you see similarities in the other tools that you've shared?
That's funny. Cami, I'm very familiar with Cami. We don't tend to use it because we're more Mac based. However, I will say Cami is great. So if you're not familiar with anyone, Cami is a Google add-on to be able to make PDFs accessible in another way. And I'd like, actually, I'm glad you bring that up, Jody, because I've spent some time more learning about it as kind of in these last couple of months as we've gone remote. And if you're in that Google environment, Cami is a great tool for teachers and for students to annotate and access documents in that Chrome environment. So yes, it's a wonderful add-on.
Great, thank you.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I can't thank you enough. This has been an amazing session. Even after hours, we have over 200 people remaining on.
I love that you guys hung out today.
So yes, we had a total of 314 people participate today for your session. So
that's great.
I'm so excited and thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, if you have questions after today, please feel free to email me, Plante with an E, just to confuse Plante, at southportschool.org. Happy to answer any questions at any time. And thank you guys for hanging out today.